Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eric here, and welcome to another game review. I know a lot of you guys really enjoyed seeing my Overwatch review, so I'm back to bring you another one. This time we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Remastered. Now to kind of give it a bit of context, I recently completed The Last of Us for the PS4 and its Left Behind DLCs. So this entire review will be talking based on both the main story and on the DLC in of itself. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about the gameplay of Last of Us Remastered. Now, Last of Us was created by Naughty Dogs, which is the same company that created the Uncharted franchise and Jak and Daxter. So, because of that, the gameplay feels similar to both them and to many other third-person shooters. What's different, however, and I feel like it's kind of like something that works both with it and against it, is the fact that you have a limited amount of ammo and resources to find and scavenge throughout the entire game to one, upgrade your weapons, to upgrade yourself, and to just keep yourself alive. Now this game can be very punishing if you try to pick a fight when you don't have the resources or the materials or even the ammo to continue it. And it gets harder and harder as if you use the ever increasing difficulties. I played this game on hard mode and it was an annoyance to try to get through because there were so many times when I had no ammo. And that works pretty well with the game considering it's a sort of zombie third-person shooter that takes the idea that you need to be careful with everything. You need to make sure that you sort of like hoard, basically. But the problem I felt that this also had with the game was that there were moments where I felt like the enemies in themselves, felt like specifically when it came to fighting the enemies, there were a lot of moments where I felt like they could have had ammo in their guns, or in the very least they could have had ammo from just whatever. And there were a lot of moments where I would be fighting these enemies and I would kill them while they're utilizing their ammo or reloading and all that, but yet the game decided not to give me the ammo. Like, they could have explained it a little bit better in that regard, because I feel like there's a lot of moments where the zombies would be giving ammo instead of the actual human beings that I have to fight on a daily basis in the game. But in terms of what I think of the gameplay of Last of Us, I personally felt it was really enjoyable. Like, it wasn't too difficult to get to learn the different mechanics of the game. The crafting felt kind of bearish, like it wasn't really too hard to do. It was just mostly just like a little bit of time consuming, considering that each thing that I craft takes about like 3 or 4 seconds to actually make it. I know I can also upgrade that so I can at least increase and decrease the crafting speed, but regardless, it still kind of felt a little lackluster because it only really gave me only a certain amount of things, and there weren't really that many moments where I needed the different items that I could craft, like the Molotovs, the bombs, and the smoke grenades and all that. But other than that, I felt like the game just was definitely well done. I enjoyed utilizing the different weapons that I had. Being able to upgrade them as well was also really nice. Like, I felt like the upgrade system for the weapons, it was pretty good. Just the lack of ammo is what always got to me. What else? In terms of the actual assistance from like the AI, in all honestly, it was kind of really god awful. Like, no offense, Naughty Dogs, but the AI in this game was far worse than in Uncharted 3. Because like there were a lot of moments where I felt like Ellie could have helped me during the game, and she just never was able to. There were only very few moments where like I was suffering from the game to like attacks, and then Ellie would come and save me. But a lot of times, what is also kind of bad. It's like it was only really Ellie's AI that really had the most trouble. Every other supporting character that was in the game just did their job and at least helped out with some kills. Ellie rarely helped as much in terms of her AI. I don't know how bad it was during the PS3 version, but I know I don't really feel much of a difference between it and the PS4 version. But besides that, it was still enjoyable. Not as bad as you would think, and it's definitely just like very similar to all the other games that Naughty Dogs has created. Alright, moving on. Moving towards the thing that has been the most acclaimed of The Last of Us, which is a story. Now, the story tries to show the growing bond between both Joel and Ellie, which started off mostly as a deal to get weapons, which then has evolved into like this sort of father-daughter thing. Now, granted, I know a lot of people have said that the story is the greatest, one of the best in the PS3 era, and also in the early days of the PS4 era. Now, for me personally, does it really live up to the amount of hype that it has? It really honestly depends because the story was really good. I really honestly enjoyed how they were trying to depict this bond between these two, with Joel becoming more like a father figure to her, and how she starts to like open up to her the same way how she's just trying to be positive in this world where almost everybody that she has known and loved has died. But the story in of itself has a lot of flaws. Particularly one of the things I disliked about the story is how the supporting characters that were in the story in of itself felt sort of underdeveloped, and they didn't really have as much screen time as you would think. Like, thinking about all the different supporting characters that I remember: Tess, Marlene, um, Frank, Tommy, Henry, and Sam. And I think that's all the different supporting cast. But the problem is, I felt like they just didn't have enough time to develop as characters, nor did they really give me much of a reason to want to care for them for when I had to basically leave them behind, whether it's metaphorically speaking or just physically. Like, I understand that they were trying to basically just tell the story and focus on Joel and Ellie, but I honestly feel like the point of The Last of Us is that it's supposed to be trying to tell this story. It tries to focus on these two characters, but what it should also be trying to do is keep the rest of the world the same as Joel and Ellie's story. Because the world they live in is a unique one. Well, not really a unique one. It's a very common thing that happens in zombie games. However, the way how they try to tell it is well done and well crafted. With the world building that it tries to do as you're progressing through the story, progressing through the cities that are just like completely demolished and just completely abandoned, to like the little stories that you can find out in each of the areas that you explore, and learning more about what has happened, it feels immersive. It allows you to learn about what's been going on in this world. But I personally feel like that the story should have put in more emphasis on development of other characters, because a lot of the times characters such as Frank, Tommy, and all that are just overshadowed by the development of Joel and Ellie. Which, granted, like I said, it's not completely awful because Joel and Ellie's story is very, very well done. But I personally feel like they should have also given some more time to like interact with the supporting cast and like give them more character development, because The one that I felt had the most amount of character development in terms of supporting cast comes from Riley, and that's from the Left Behind DLC. I feel like she's the one with the most amount of development. With the second one, in my opinion, being Tez. And that's because we've spent put like around 2 to 3 hours with her. While every other character I felt I put approximately about 1 hour to maybe 1 hour and 30 minutes, which in my opinion isn't really that much if it's just like these little moments of just chatting and in pure silence as we're progressing through the story. Uh, Moving on though. Two of the things that I also want to give credit to and acknowledge of Last of Us is both its visuals and its soundtrack. Now, Last of Us came out during like the end era of the PS3 and then was released during like the beginning era of the PS4. So, in terms of its visuals, it's been like 3 to 4 years. But I can honestly say that the game has aged well, despite some moments where I feel like the visuals and like the facial animations aren't really that good compared to like other games, which makes sense. This is a really old game, but it has aged well in comparison to other games. I honestly like the visuals. I honestly like seeing the whole world. I like seeing the different character animations for any expressions that each character has. Like, it feels natural. And this especially goes well with the OST because the OST tries to not be as distinct, like it tries to fit in with the atmosphere of the game. So it kind of feels more like country, not gonna lie. I kind of feel like it's like country, but in all honesty, the only other time I've ever seen a game or a film ever really try to replicate it is Logan. And honestly, it feels really nice. The music is soothing and calming, and it also offers sort of a touch on the world and its atmosphere, and like it makes you understand just how lonely the planet is due to what has happened in the story. Like, it's world building, in my opinion, just without the actual world building. And honestly, I have to give credit to the people who design the visuals and to the people who were in charge of the soundtrack. I honestly felt like they weren't paid enough for this game because it was enjoyable going through it and just listening to the soothing guitar music. Like, there's not really that many moments that really in video games that really do that, but in this game it felt nice. Moving on towards the Left Behind DLC. The Left Behind DLC is rather odd because it's a combination of both explaining what happened during the events when Joel was injured and explains what Ellie had to do to save him, and it also recounts the events leading up to Ellie being bitten, which was with her encounter with her former best friend slash partner in crime, Riley. Now, granted, this DLC is rather short, but it's still pretty long at the same time, for especially for a DLC that was like pretty cheap. What I felt the DLC had that did very very well was its story and with its sort of like the relationship between Riley and Ellie, which honestly didn't really feel forced. Like, it felt natural, and it kind of gave a little bit more growth into Ellie as a character. Kind of shows just what she had to deal with right before she encountered Joel. And in all honesty, she is probably one of the better characters out there in video games. Not to mention the fact that her relationships in the games have been very well done. It'll be interesting to see what they do with her in terms of her character in The Last of Us Part 2. But I can honestly say that the Left Behind DLC was an enjoyable 3 hours that sort of like left a bit of nostalgia, a little bit of walking down memory lane, and at the same time felt very like it felt like a continuation of the story without having to retcon a lot of things, which it obviously didn't. But honestly, this DLC was well done, and I felt Riley was probably the best and the most developed supporting character out of the entire Last of Us universe, besides Tess. Now that I got my sort of specific thoughts that I had for each portion of the game that I wanted to talk about, let me try to give my general consensus of The Last of Us Remastered. Now, in all honesty, The Last of Us Remastered was probably one of the better PS4 games. I personally enjoyed a lot of the aspects of this game. It's actually one of the very few games to have ever scared me. And what I mean by scared, it just means it just scared the living crap out of me. Its story was very interactive. I personally enjoyed the conversations that you can have with Ellie. I personally enjoyed how Joel and Ellie were portrayed in this thing. I enjoyed the DLCs. The gameplay was pretty fun but stressful because a lot of times it felt like it was unnecessarily more difficult in terms of scavenging things, but at the same time that's what I get for also playing in a harder difficulty. Now, I really enjoyed how the story, while revolving around Joel and Ellie, then also showed the sort of character development of Ellie, and it shows how her relationships with both Joel, Marlene, and Riley have kind of made her into this sort of fresh developed character, while Joel was also developed in a way that allowed him to become who will probably be in The Last of Us Part 2. This game in of itself was very spot on. I personally enjoyed it, as I said before. I honestly can't wait to see what they'll have in store for The Last of Us Part 2. I definitely feel that they should definitely improve on some of the aspects that I didn't like about the story. The gameplay could still remain kind of the same for part 2, but I don't know what they're going to be doing there. If I had to give this game a rating, like just a normal rating without trying to be biased or whatever, because I've heard a lot of good things about this game. I've seen a lot of people give it critical acclaim and all that, and while I personally don't have that kind of like hype of saying that this game is game of the year for me, at least game of the year 2014 and all that, I would have to give The Last of Us Remastered a 8 out of 10. It gave me a lot of enjoyment in involving with the story, and it felt just nice. Plus, it's also made by the same company that made Uncharted, so yeah. But like I said, an 8 out of 10 is what I'm going to be giving this game. I would, in terms of its story, I would give it probably a 9 out of 10. In terms of gameplay, it would probably be, yeah, definitely an 8 out of 10. It's, yeah. Point being, I felt the game was definitely good. I probably won't be saying much more other than this game can be considered like a work of art. Because it definitely feels and definitely shows the struggles of humanity. And how sometimes it's better to just be a good person. But it also shows kind of like the struggles of dealing with loss and dealing with pain and having to survive. But that's for another time. Well, I'm going to end the video off. Thanks so much for watching this review. Hopefully the next review will be good. With that, I'll sign off. Talk to you all later.